Now, the Supreme Court has ruled that constitutional courts cannot prescribe timelines for the president or governors while they decide on bills passed by state legislatures, calling such directions unconstitutional. The court delivered its opinion on a presidential reference that sought clarity on whether courts could mandate time-bound action under Articles 200 and 201. A constitutional bench of Chief Justice B.R. Gavai and Justices Suryakant, Vikramnath, P.S. Narasimha and A.S. Chandurkar struck down earlier directions issued by a two-justice judge bench in the Tamil Nadu case, which had fixed deadlines for governors when dealing with bills. The bench also held that courts cannot grant deemed assent to bills pending before a governor. It noted that the two-judge bench's use of Article 142 to grant deemed assent to 10 Tamil Nadu bills was beyond its authority. The court said it cannot assume or override the constitutional powers vested in governors and the president. At the same time, the bench clarified that governors cannot indefinitely withhold assent to bills. And I have my colleague Sambhav Sharma joining me with more details. Sambhav, what can you tell us?
Well, absolutely. Here it's a big, ruling by the top court, five-judge bench of the Supreme Court, where Supreme Court five-judge bench today has, clarified that timeline cannot be fixed for governor and the president for giving assent to a bill. And this is important because we see the five-judge bench of the Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice of India, B.R. Gavai, Justice Suryakant, who is going to be the next Chief Justice of India in a few days, and along with them is Justice Vikramnath, Justice P.S. Narasimha, and Justice A.S. Chandurkar. Five-judge constitutional bench has clarified, made it very clear as to what exactly this particular ruling will be. Here the Supreme Court has said very clearly that the timeline cannot be fixed for the governor and the president.
For the governor and the president for giving assent to the bill. And also a very important point made by, because the judgment, the oral part of the judgment was read by Chief Justice of India, B.R. Gavai, and he said that deemed assent in a way is alien to Indian Constitution, and this in a way the Supreme Court five-judge bench has overruled its earlier judgment partially. It can be said that the five-judge bench of the Supreme Court today overruled its earlier two-judge bench of judgment of April 8, where the Supreme Court has given a 3-month deadline to the governors and president to deal with the bills placed before them for consideration. So there is a kind of slight change, in a way slight overruling of its earlier judgment. However, court has also clarified that on one hand timeline cannot be imposed, but they'll have, as in the president and the governors will have to take decisions in a reasonable time, is what is said by the five-judge bench of the Supreme Court. And in a reasonable time, it is expected that the governors will take decision on the bills placed before them for consideration. So this is important in a way that they'll have to work, governors will have to work in a reasonable time. And also another very important point made by the Supreme Court here is that there is a limited scope of judicial review. The limited scope of judicial review if they, the governors won't be, if they are not, responding to the bills placed before them, then in a reasonable time, then a limited scope of judicial review will be there. However, keeping the separation of powers in mind, this limited judicial review is expected, and court can take a judicial review of the situation, but cannot talk or discuss the merit of the bills, is what is said by the five-judge bench. And also in a way made it clear that governors cannot sit endlessly on the bills. On the other hand, has the five-judge bench has made it clear that timeline cannot be fixed when it comes to giving assent to the bills. So these are the very important points made by five-judge constitution bench today during the presidential reference ruling.
Sambhav, give us a little bit of a background. I mean, of course, the Supreme Court has made this ruling, but how has this come about at this moment?
Well, absolutely. See, here earlier on April 8, when the Supreme Court has given a 3 months, time frame for the governors and the president to give their assent to a bill, here that 3 months time frame has been taken back, and now the governors and the president will have to give their assent to a bill in a reasonable time. However, no time frame is put by the court, and there is a limited scope of judicial review. And in this backdrop of April 8th ruling, judgment of the Supreme Court, where Supreme Court imposed in a way 3 months timeline, the President of India under Article 143 of Indian Constitution has sought clarity on certain things, and has written to the Supreme Court seeking clarity on 14 questions related to the Constitution, related to Article 200 of Indian Constitution, which gives governor the powers, Article 201 of Indian Constitution, among others. So today's Supreme Court in a way clarified, and I also want to I made few pointers out of what the top court has said, which I want to read